In the world of television, spin-offs rarely outshine their parent shows. Yet Young Sheldon, the prequel to the wildly successful The Big Bang Theory, has carved its own legacy, not by relying on the nostalgia of its origin, but by delivering moments of heartfelt brilliance, emotional maturity, and thematic depth. Nowhere is this more evident than in the show's highest-rated episode, a true masterpiece that transcends its sitcom roots and reaches into something far more profound. The episode that changed everything. The episode in question, Season 4, Episode 18, titled, The Wild and Woolly World of Nonlinear Dynamics. On the surface, it might appear like any other 20-minute network comedy, with the usual trappings of family squabbles, sibling rivalries, and the occasional quirky science reference. But in truth, it is a masterclass in character development, emotional storytelling, and thematic weight, all wrapped in the familiar warmth of the Cooper household. It begins with a typical family scene. Missy is upset, Sheldon is oblivious, George and Mary are arguing in hushed tones, and Mima is being, well, Mima. But quickly, the tone shifts. What unfolds is a complex exploration of emotional dynamics, between a brother and sister, between a husband and wife, between a child genius and the world that confuses him. Missy's meltdown. A silent scream for attention. Missy Cooper, often the comic relief or the foil to Sheldon's eccentricities, is finally placed center stage. And what the show does so brilliantly is peel back the layers of her character without ever turning her into a trope. She's not the forgotten twin, or the emotional girl. She's a child, confused and angry, struggling with feelings of invisibility in a household that often revolves around the high-maintenance needs of her genius brother. In this episode, Missy has a quiet emotional breakdown. The trigger, a fight with her parents, a bad day at school, and the growing realization that she is slowly being overlooked in the chaos of a family held together by threads. She lashes out, runs away, and ends up in the car with Mima, where one of the show's most touching and heartbreaking scenes occurs. Sometimes I think I could disappear and no one would notice, Missy says. It's a line that hits like a freight train, not because it's dramatic, but because it's real. It's the voice of every child who has felt unseen, unheard, and unimportant. And in that moment, Young Sheldon sheds its comedic skin and becomes something deeper. George and Mary. The cracks begin to show. One of the most compelling aspects of Young Sheldon is the slow, inevitable unraveling of George and Mary's marriage. A backstory hinted at frequently in The Big Bang Theory but given tragic life in the prequel. In the wild and woolly world of nonlinear dynamics, we see one of the first major fissures take shape. As Missy acts out, George and Mary disagree on how to handle it. Mary wants to discipline her, George wants to understand her. Their argument escalates, not into yelling, but into something colder. Silence, distance, resentment, and perhaps most powerfully, realization. George, often portrayed as lazy or simple in the original series, is shown here as emotionally intelligent, a father who sees the pain in his children and doesn't know how to fix it. And Mary, caught between her religious ideals, her duties as a mother, and her own emotional exhaustion, is stretched to the limit. We see her praying, not just for strength, but for clarity. For something to hold on to. It's raw, it's subtle, and it's tragic. Sheldon. Learning the limits of logic. Then there's Sheldon himself. The boy genius. The know-it-all. The future Nobel Prize winner who can solve physics equations but struggles to understand why his sister is crying. What makes this episode so poignant is that Sheldon doesn't suddenly become emotionally aware. There's no magic epiphany. Instead, he tries to comfort Missy in the only way he knows how, through logic. He tells her about the laws of entropy. About how systems naturally descend into chaos. It's a clumsy attempt, but an honest one. And that's the beauty of it. The show never betrays Sheldon's character for the sake of sentimentality. Instead, it shows growth through discomfort. He sits next to Missy, quiet. Not understanding her, but wanting to. And for a character like Sheldon, that's monumental. Direction and writing. Simplicity as strength. What elevates this episode beyond its peers is not just its content, but its craft. The direction is restrained, letting the actors breathe and the silences linger. There's no overbearing score telling you when to cry, no sweeping monologues or grand resolutions. Instead, the episode relies on quiet moments. A glance between George and Mary, Missy curled up in bed alone, Sheldon sitting beside her without speaking. The writing understands that sometimes, the most powerful lines are the ones left unsaid. A reflection of real families at its core, Young Sheldon has always been a show about family. Not the perfect sitcom kind, but the messy, complicated, heartbreaking kind. This episode is its apex because it dares to stop being funny for a moment. It dares to get uncomfortable. It dares to show a family not breaking, but bending, struggling to hold together in the face of their own limitations. And in doing so, it does what all great television aspires to. It reflects real life. The legacy of a single episode, the wild and woolly world of nonlinear dynamics, may not have the most jokes, the flashiest guest stars, or the biggest plot twists, but it is young Sheldon's soul distilled into 22 minutes. It's the episode where we truly understand Missy, where we see George not as a footnote in Sheldon's life, but as a fully realized man, where Mary's faith and fatigue collide, and where Sheldon, for once, isn't the smartest person in the room, because he's finally trying to feel, not just think. And perhaps that's what makes it a masterpiece, because in a show about a boy genius, the smartest thing young Sheldon ever did was remind us of the quiet, painful brilliance of being human. Would you like a shortened version or a version rewritten for a different tone, like humorous or analytical?